The following is a Sports Ethos presentation. Yo, welcome to another edition of Roundball Ramble. I know it's been a minute. I apologize. Life has been wild. Good, bad, and all of it. It's been wild. But I am back, hopefully for the long term here. I am joined with my buddy Anirudh. I'm going to let him come on here in a second, but I do want to let you know this is a Sports Ethos presentation like the intro says. So check out Sports Ethos on Twitter at sportsethos.com. Or on Twitter at Sports Ethos. I'm rusty, y'all. On Twitter at Sports Ethos, online sportsethos.com. Also, while you're on Twitter checking out Sports Ethos, please take a moment to follow at Ethos Fantasy BK on Twitter, the single most dominant basketball and fantasy news feed on earth. Get all your NBA news in one handy Twitter feed. It's faster than competition and provides more analysis too. Again, that's at Ethos Fantasy BK on Twitter. Follow now. All right. With that, it's been a minute. Like I said, I apologize, y'all, but I had to bring it on with a guest, regular friend, as we all know, Anirudh. Anirudh, man, how you doing?
Just reeling from how my bracket is completely destroyed, but other than that, they're pretty good.
Listen, I didn't even do a bracket this year, if you can believe it or not. It's been so wild. I just said, hey, Arizona's going all the way. U of A bear down, and I'm going to hope that happens.
I got Arizona and Gonzaga facing off in the finals. Hopefully. I got Arizona and Gonzaga facing off, but hopefully it happens. Iowa was my big loss. Looks like everyone kind of fell on that one.
I was really hopeful that Memphis would take down Gonzaga. I just thought, Penny Hardaway, the team went through a lot of adversity. I like Jalen Duren, that kind of athletic front court guy that I thought could give Gonzaga some problems, and he sort of did. They had a bunch of veteran guards. Amani Bates was in there, even though he really didn't factor in the second half of Memphis' season. It was just interesting to me how those two teams squared off. And mind you, Memphis controlled a good part of the game, but Drew Timmy, he went off in that second half and really carried the Gonzaga team to a victory. But Memphis played well. That was the one team I was really looking at as maybe more of an upset. But with that being said, let's kind of talk about it for a second. We got March Madness, as we know. I'd already mentioned before recording this with you, bro, that Benjamin Mathurin. Did I say that right? I feel like I did. But anyway, just obliterated TCU on a slam that was just disgusting. Benedict, I don't know why I want to say Benjamin, but anyway, Benedict Mathurin, and obviously he's going to factor into this NBA draft. What have you seen so far? We talked about this draft class, how it's not really that crazy good, but like that does make it more exciting. There's been a lot more upsets because all the teams are more or less on like the same plane. But a lot of these guys are going to be, we talked about a few today, or we've seen a few today. Paulo Banchero with Duke. We saw Jabari Smith Jr. play horribly with Auburn. Like a lot of these guys are potentially going to be number one pick in this upcoming NBA draft.
Yeah, so like obviously there's no grade one that tier one prospect like a Zion, a Luka, Cade. Like there's no clear guy that you'd say, okay, this is a foundation piece for the future of our franchise. But there are some really good solid pieces. Like obviously, like the top tier, I think it's kind of set at this point with Chet, Jabari, Jaden Ivey, Paulo Banchero, and then whatever happens with Shaedon Sharpe. If I'm assuming, like if he ends up actually
being part of the draft.
I don't know what's going on. So
it's just been so quiet. But then again, I thought Amani Bates wouldn't play for the rest of the season with Kentucky, and then he ended up playing 2 games in March Madness. So who knows, right?
Like, then again, Amani Bates, like the dude came in as like one of the most hyped up high school players. Like people were talking about him as the next Kevin Durant, and
which is wild.
He was awful this year.
Mm-hmm. Well,
So,
I
I
heard a
mean,
lot of folks didn't like his wingspan and everything. I didn't like the way his attitude was perceived. I know that's a really just random thing to be like, I don't like it, but that was my thing. But yeah, he had a reality check, it seemed like.
and sometimes you kind of need it. Like there are some guys who just come in, they let the hype get to them, and usually like when you are like the best player at your high school or since AAU days, it can sometimes get to you. You may not realize like, oh, I'm no longer the best player out there. There's like a million better players around me, and I can't just dominate with size or shooting or whatever it is.
Yeah,
And
it's reality
it
check.
looks like that might have been a case.
Possibly. I mean, I don't know. Maybe it helped for the better. Again, he did end up playing with a couple. He made, I think, a big three in each of the two games that the Memphis Tigers had in the tournament. We'll see what happens next year. Obviously, he's not going to the NBA draft this season, but Jalen Duren definitely will. That'll be interesting. Yeah, there's a few guys on in this draft class that I look at and I'm not like jumping or salivating at. You know, like, oh, I can't wait to see how they fit into the system. The closest guy I had to that was Jabari Smith from Auburn. I just love the fact this big who is just a really good shooter. Like that's plug and play in the NBA if there is one. You know, I was really hopeful for that. I still am. He didn't have the greatest of showing. He did a horrible showing as they just got eliminated, if I remember correctly, earlier this evening. We're recording this on the 20th by the time you listen to it. So this will be on Sunday, the 20th. The Auburn Tigers lost to the Miami Hurricanes 79-61. And yeah, it was bad. Miami's defense totally took Walker Kessler and Jabari Smith Jr. out of it in a major way. Like those guys, they had no chance. Kessler went 0 for 6. And then Jabari missed 13 of his first 15 shots and was 1 of 8 from 3. His only 3-point make was Auburn's final basket of the game. Like they were physical. They, sent 2 people. Like they gave him a taste of some real tough defense that he might more likely be seeing in the next level.
Yeah, Jabari Smith was just kind of like a really interesting prospect. I think just as a baseline, someone with size who can shoot the way he can is always just going to have a spot on a roster. Um, at minimum, he's kind of like this MPJ type of player where big forward who can shoot. I think one of the interesting things is like, can he develop a handle? Because if he does, I think that can be something that really unlocks him as more of a wing as opposed to a big. But in general, just like he has really nice defensive instincts and his shot is really nice. So he's kind of like the most surefire thing in this draft as just here's a serviceable player that will play for the next couple of years. The other guy that's kind of like that is Paulo Banchero, but I feel like the ceiling on him is a lot lower than with Jabari's because Paulo's like, he'll come in, he'll be this elite scorer, but it's the other things that are kind of worrisome. Like there's a lot of comps that have been thrown around. Like the Mellow one is the one that like I keep hearing it's like a high upside, but he's not that kind of shooter, at least not yet. Julius Randle is more of like an interesting one for me, where he is this like tweener sized almost who can get his own shot in the mid range. He can score from post up out of the triple threat. So he has some nice footwork, but it's his defense that's a bit concerning. And then like his playmaking, like he's shown some nice flashes, but I also personally don't think that Duke team is any good this year. So that's just me,
they're just very. Yeah, I agree. They're just very kind of there,
Yeah, it's like I think they're okay. It's just I personally don't think like a lot of the players are being put into the right situations to make the most of it. So we'll see how he goes. And then Chet Holmgren is just kind of like this year's like, what the hell is this person? Like I've talked to a couple of people, and there are people who say he's the next Poku, and then someone has said that he's the next Porzingis, and then the gap between those two is very different players.
Yeah.
But then again, Porzingis isn't the player that we kind of hope he would become, just because of injuries, and that's kind of one of the things that worries you about Chet, where this is a super skinny guy who's tall, but unlike Porzingis, he's an elite defender.
Yeah. Well, I was gonna say what's weird for me is that Porzingis, I think some of it's injury for sure, but also some of it is the fact that like he plays a finesse game, and you get guys of his size, it's really more of a power game, you know? So in this case, like, can his finesse style, can you play through that consistently and be a focal point of an offense? You know? And I think that's more of the question that we would see there.
Yeah, Chet, like on the other hand, is like a really physical player. So he's competitive. He'll
Mm-hmm.
constantly fight for position. He does have trouble with certain guys getting sealed on the block.
Mm-hmm.
Um, we saw Jalen Duren punish him a little bit in their matchup,
Yeah.
but overall, like I think his fundamentals are pretty solid. He moves his feet well, especially in drop coverage. In transition, he's been great. He'll shoot some occasional trailer threes, and it. The thing that like we just have yet to see is can he create his own shot, or is he going to be a guy who's dependent on being next to an elite number one option? So it's possible that he can create his own shot, but even without it, I still think he probably has the highest upside in this class. Maybe Jabari just has a little more if he, because I see Jabari being able to create his own shot a little better. But both of those two, I think, are like the clear 1 and 2 in this draft in some order. I don't care who you have, but I feel like everyone else is slightly lower than that.
I agree with you. Thoughts on before we move on, thoughts on Jaden Ivey, you know, guy who's been hitting, tough pull-up jump shots, even though his jumper's been kind of weird. Clearly, just from the athletic level, very fast. Get drawn comparisons to Russell Westbrook, John Morant. I'm going to be doing this week like my own like mock draft to try to get into this some more. So that'll be interesting to kind of see where that goes. But I just want to get your thoughts on him if you've been aware or been able to like look at him for a little.
Yeah, he's a crazy athlete. He's like a 6'4" guard. Um, Plays at Purdue. He's a legitimate one man fast break. Like he really reminds you of Westbrook at times, where he'll just grab and go, and he's constantly attacking downhill. Purdue does play a little more like of a big man post up offense, but he's still finding a way to thrive. So it gets a lot of NBA teams will say this, but like I want to see him with NBA spacing and where he can really drive an offense as opposed to kind of being the second or third option in Purdue's offense. But his playmaking is really nice. His athleticism is off the charts. And I think Purdue tends to slow it down a little too much, especially when you have Edie and Trevion Williams. So just seeing Jaden
Mm-hmm.
Ivey in a more open court situation where he has space around him and he can just constantly attack downhill, that's going to be the biggest thing. And then
Uh-huh.
defensively, point of attack, he has some trouble, but then again, it's like most guards kind of have that issue. He does show some nice instincts, especially coming out of ball screens. So I have a little hope that he can be good defensively. And he does have really nice tools. He has solid wingspan. He has nice size for his position. And I think there is a genuine case that he could go number one.
That's fair. That's fair. I mean, listen, this is a draft where it's like I would not be surprised if we saw one of Chet, Jabari, Paulo, or Jaden. Maybe somebody even goes crazy. Like those guys have all fluctuated. You have concerns for Chet, his frame, will it hold up an NBA level? At least some think so. You have concerns about Paulo Banchero's ability to shoot three consistently, his defensive side. You know what I mean? Jabari Smith Jr. He can shoot. What else can he do other than shoot and play defense? Do you have anything on the bounce? Does anything there? Jaden Ivey is shooting. All I've had questions. I would not be surprised to see any of them take a number one. Any of them be a steal at number four. This is a draft that's just kind of, I'm surprised. It's just there.
Yeah,
Definitely
there's
gonna be
just like a
interesting.
lot of like I remember Sam Vecini was saying that like the gap between the 27th and the 50th best player in this draft is not that much. So there's just constantly going to be guys that you can all find for any team. So even if you have a lower pick, I don't think it's as bad as previous years where after a certain point it feels like the drop off is too big.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. That's true. But going on from this, we're gonna definitely go and tune more into the draft. Like I said, I'm going to be doing a a mock draft here soon. I know I'll probably have Anirudh back on, talk some draft, knowing that he's always in line with the NBA drafts and looking at these prospects. Um, Going on from there, let's kind of go back to the NBA. It's been a slow couple of days. College basketball has taken all of the attention, rightfully so. But we are approaching literally less than a month before the end of the NBA regular season, and the playoffs start April 20th. So literally a month from when we're recording, we'll have the NBA playoffs starting. Honor, I'm going to start with you. What are some NBA storylines or a storyline that you have an eye on here as we enter the final weeks of the regular season?
I mean, to me, the big one is what is going to happen with the Warriors at this point. Um, Steph Curry
Good one.
goes out with the injury. Hopefully, it's nothing too crazy and long term, but it looks like he won't be back before the playoffs. And Warriors are already at risk of losing to Memphis for that second seed, but if they drop down, that could just cause some more chaos in the standings. You'd have Utah potentially slip up there, Dallas maybe, Minnesota, Denver. There's just a lot of things that can go out. And we already had some concerns with Draymond, although that first game that he came back, he looked pretty good, so I'm not too worried. But just in general, this is a team that's been pretty reliant on their two guys in Draymond and Steph. So any one of them go out, this team could be a first round exit.
Wow. I mean, I agree. It's crazy to hear it be said. You know what I mean? But I definitely do agree with you. Just because injuries have been a big thing. Just when the Warriors got together after like 1,000 days or something of not having Steph Curry, Draymond Green, and of course Klay Thompson all in the same court. They do that for what, a game and a half, and then Steph Curry gets injured. He's out. The drop off at the point guard spot is real. Again, the continuity is not really there. Even though Draymond Green's more your de facto point guard, you get the point. It's still a mix of guys in and out the rotation. And you're right. Like the way they play, a lot of it is talented, of course, but like a lot of it, I think, is continuity, being able to say, hey, we're all back in fine form, not only chemistry wise with each other, but also fully health wise. If you're battling one or the other, especially toward the top of the West, like that could be, the right matchup, give you some problems. And I could definitely see the Warriors go to the conference finals. I could see them possibly even make their NBA finals. I could see them losing the first round. Absolutely. Like the barometer of success is so varied for this team. Not even the barometer of success, the barometer of outcomes rather is so varied that, yeah, you're right. It could go one of 1,000 different ways, all based on who they have on the floor come April. And I think we're going to have to see, one, how long it takes Steph Curry's foot to respond, two, if other guys are going to be able to come back to health for the Warriors, three, if you're able to keep Klay Thompson and Draymond Green healthy, but still get their form back. For Klay, it's still been it's been a season of him trying to find his footing, and not even a season, half a season. And for Draymond, he missed almost 2 months. Like it's a lot for these guys. So you're right, getting them on the same page is going to be important. And the Warriors may just run out of time.
Yeah, and the other thing is that like a lot of their other role players have fallen off a bit. Like Jordan Poole's come on a little bit towards the end of this last couple of games, but in general, like Andrew Wiggins hasn't been the same since his fairly all-star starter quality season. But he hasn't been the same. Nemanja Bjelica, Otto Porter haven't really been the same contributors as early on.
Mm-hmm.
Kevon Looney is trying his best to just survive out there. But in general, like a lot of this team had quality depth at the beginning, and that depth is starting to not be the same performance wise. So I don't know. Hopefully, Kerr has been experimenting with trying to bring all three of Steph, Klay, and Poole out together more, and at times it does look pretty good. But I think the biggest thing is Poole's minutes have been fluctuating, and I think that's been affecting him when it's either him starting or coming off the bench. But just in general, like he isn't the same movement shooter that Klay is. He's more of a guy like Jordan Clarkson, where he wants to get his own shot a little bit more, as opposed to just constantly running around screens looking for an open three.
Yeah.
So trying to be able to find that rhythm between all three of them is going to take some time. And if Steph's out, that's just going to make it worse.
Absolutely. Absolutely. No, I'm right there with you. They're going to be a team I'm definitely going to be keeping an eye on myself. Uh, the Lakers, the Pelicans, I'm looking at those just the battle for the play-in, but honestly, both teams should sit tight right where they are. The Pelicans, I think, have been too injured to really make up any ground on the Lakers, although they have been playing a little bit better, markedly better since CJ McCollum has come in, but he was out for, I wouldn't say a game or two with health and safety protocol. And then, of course, you had Brandon Ingram, who's been out continually due to some hamstring issues. That can definitely be a reoccurring thing. Um, in spite of that, with the absence of Ingram, you do lose a lot of offensive pop, and you force Coach Willie Green to make substitutions and starting lineups that are less optimal for the Pelicans. In one way, trying to augment the offense a little bit, we have a backcourt of Devontae Graham and CJ McCollum, which is great for the offense side of the ball, but it bleeds points on the defensive end in a major way since, Devontae Graham is undersized and bad at defense, and CJ McCollum is less bad defense, but still bad and also undersized. So you do have two guys, that are doing capably on one side of the ball and not doing on the other. Add to that a lack of, I want to say, dynamic wings, although Herb Jones has been amazing on the defensive side of the glass and has shown a little bit more offensively. And then you're looking at whatever you can get from CJ McCollum and Jonas Valanciunas on a night-to-night basis, which, I mean, that's not necessarily a recipe for success. I know they're still waiting on Zion, see what happens there. If Brandon Ingram come back and shake that nagging hamstring injury, then they'll be a lot better. But I think this play-in race isn't really a race. It's just two teams trying to hold on until the end of the season. But
yeah.
Oh yeah, I left it hanging there, much like everyone else is with this play-in team.
I mean, never mind. I'm not going to talk about the Lakers here.
I mean, listen, I will appreciate that. I'm going to take that. I'm going to say thank you because I don't know what to say about this team that hasn't already been said. LeBron James going and passing Karl Malone for second all-time in NBA league scoring is great. But and I told this too, I was on the Chase Thomas podcast earlier this week, and I said every time LeBron passes a record, his team loses the game. It happened when he passed Jordan. It happened when he passed Kobe. It just happens. They're going to lose the game. So when I saw they beat the Raptors in a thrilling game, and I was like, okay, great. They're either going to lose against Washington, which is going to be kind of weird because Washington is the one team I think the Lakers are just definitely better than, or they're going to lose to Cleveland, which would make a lot more sense. But hey, as the homecoming, LeBron, all of that, it made sense to me. So him playing Washington, the fact that, hey, he scored 38 points was easy, and the Wizards really could not stop him for the first half. And then the second half, the Lakers' continuity fell apart. The Wizards used, that to their maximum effectiveness, and Kristaps Porzingis realized that, hey, I'm just turning over and shooting over Austin Reeves and LeBron James. That's not too hard. Once that happened, the Lakers kind of gave it up, and it's this has been the way of things. Win a game, lose a game. Do one good thing here, there's going to be one bad thing here. They haven't won back-to-back games since January 7th, Anirudh. This is a not great team that is playing like a team that is not great.
You want to talk about superstar Wenyen Gabriel and how he's the savior of the Lakers?
You know what? I'm not gonna lie. I have definitely enjoyed seeing Wenyen Gabriel. He's an interesting guy. Defensively, he's shown some spice. Offensively, that three ball has looked nice. The free throws have not looked great, but he brings an energy and a passion that I wish it was rubbing off into the Lakers, but it reminds me very much of how it was when Stanley Johnson first joined the Lakers roster, and the insertion of energy and I almost want to say desperation from these guys on the outside looking in that came in. They really helped this team in a major way, and I feel like Wenyen Gabriel is somebody that, hey, maybe him and along with Stanley Johnson will actually be interesting pieces for next year's team, because this year I just want to say put a fork in his team. We're cooked.
So my experience with Wenyen Gabriel, because he was a two-way guy in the Blazers for a while.
Yeah.
And so when I played 2K, I used to, especially if I was ever playing as a center, as my player, I would try to join the Blazers. Okay. And for some reason, Wenyen Gabriel is a beast at just catching lobs constantly. So in my head for like the last 2 years, all I thought is this guy's is amazing dunker. He just needs to be on the right team, and he'll thrive. And then I watched the game of it, and he's nice, but 2K has some changes they need to make for the
Yeah,
player.
yeah, they really do. It feels like 2K out there tricking y'all, running around, making them think you're doing something. Like,
so who are you going to waive for Wendy Gabriel?
oh man, when you asked me this question earlier, I was like, really? And like, the knee-jerk reaction is to say Avery Bradley, of course, but Avery Bradley did help win. Well, he kind of basically did. No, he helped win that game. Russell like helped get there, but he helped win that game against the Raptors, and he knows Frank Vogel's style, which for the rest of the season defensively means something. When Frank Vogel is gone at the end of the year, then of course, Avery Bradley will be a lot more expendable. But in the meantime, between time, it can't be him. So I'm looking at the end of the roster and I see a two-way Mason Jones. I see a cooked Trevor
DeAndre
Ariza.
Jordan. Oh wait, he's gone already.
Yeah, exactly. I say Wayne. It had to be somewhere between Kendrick Nunn, Trevor Ariza, Wayne Ellington. I think Kent Bazemore does just too good for the vibes and like was honestly just being overplayed. Like I think he's still a decent player. He was just like being overplayed when he was starting and playing the role he was. And then he went from that to not playing at all. Like I just think he still has some value there. Ariza's done. Like it's over. The fact that he lasted 18 years is amazing, but this is it. Like this is a wrap for him. DJ Augustine we just got. I'm not willing to say anything yet. Kendrick Nunn hasn't played all year, so I'm willing to say okay with that. And Wayne Ellington, same thing. Just unfortunately not playing all much of the season, not be great on the defensive end of the floor. And that's about it. I mean, he's actually shooting 39% from three in limited attempts, so it's not like there's anything crazy there. But those are the candidates I would say. Who would you say?
I mean, can we waive Russ? Oh wait, no,
Oh
that's
wow, funny. I mean,
no, I'm joking. If it was me, I'd probably pick one of Bazemore or God. The thing is, like, I really want to believe in some of these guys, but then again, it's like you haven't shown me anything the last couple months. So it might be Trevor Ariza, but
I mean,
again, like, it's a wing who can just like, can he move at least?
I mean, honestly, here's the thing: the Lakers could have used him against the Wizards, right? When they had constantly Kristaps Porzingis just turning and shooting over either LeBron James or Austin Reeves. Trevor Ariza couldn't even see the floor in that matchup. If you can't find Trevor Ariza in a spot where the only thing that comes into play at this point, his size, can actually be used, then he just can't be on the floor. And if he can't be on the floor, then get him out of here.
Yeah, good point. Yeah, it might have to be Trevor Ariza.
That's just
about the same size.
Yeah, like exactly. I mean, it is what it is. It's unfortunate, but it is what it is there. So I'm right there with you there. But yeah, that was a depressing note. Thanks a lot for that, Anirudh. Really appreciate that. Before
Anytime.
we go on to spotlighting your Dallas Mavericks, Anirudh, I do want to take just a moment here, and not to wax poetic about my Lakers because it's over. Like I said, I finally come to grips with that. But I don't want you listeners to be stuck on that. I want you guys to listen to this here. And what that is we have a brand new daily fantasy partner at Sports Ethos. It's Thrive Fantasy. Prop up with Thrive Fantasy on their mobile app or at thrivefantasy.com. Use the code ETHOS, ETHOS, when you sign up to get a 100% deposit match bonus on your first deposit up to $100 plus either 2 or 4 free game tickets to play. Pick player props on the biggest names playing every night, score points when your props hit, and the players with the most points win a share of the nightly prize money. And check out our Sports Ethos DFS team or podcast for advice on winners. Again, that code is ETHOS, ETHOS, over at thrivefantasy.com. All right, so now it's time for our little team spotlight edition, feature, whatever you call it. I'm going to throw it over to Anirudh. We are talking the Dallas Mavericks, a team that actually has some hope for this postseason.
Yeah, just ignore the last loss to Charlotte.
Oh, yeah, despite Lucas 38.
no one could hit a shot. Damn, that game was awful.
True that though.
I mean, I was like looking at it. I mean, okay, to be fair, they were missing Spencer Dinwiddie back to back. He was resting. Reggie Bullock just came back to the team, so they didn't want to play him yet. Um, Hopefully, whatever's going on in his personal life is getting better. So you knew you were going into a team that was a bit hot and they're a good offense. You're missing a defender and one of your core scorers, so it was going to be a little tough. But the Hornets hit like 50% of their threes, and they were just making everything. Like Miles Bridges hit like this amazing fadeaway over Josh Green, and yeah, that was just not a good game. But in general, let's talk about the Mavs. Spencer Dinwiddie has come into the team,
True.
and they've been pretty good. I mean, so like it sounds cliche, but like the Mavs fans have been yelling about another ball handler for like the last 3 years.
Yep.
And when you add another ball handler, the offense explodes. Who would have known? But
it is a novel concept, Anirudh. It is a novel concept.
I don't know. Look, whoever thought of the idea needs to be given an award at this point. Make them the GM. Okay, so when they made the trade for Spencer Dinwiddie and Davis Bertans, I know a lot of fans were pissed off because they were like, okay, we're getting rid of the best player in the deal. But in general, like the reason they made that move was for financial reasons. It's easier to move to smaller contracts, even if they're bad, than it is one giant bad contract. And my thinking was, okay, this is a purely financial move. It's not really to make the team better, and it's just to make it more flexible. Whatever you get out of Dinwiddie and Bertans, hopefully you can rehab their value a little bit, is a boost. But Dinwiddie comes in and he's been incredible, like a real constant scoring presence who can just get the ball drive, and he's been a good playmaker. His shooting has been incredible. That probably comes down to earth a little bit, but I think just getting a better diet of catch and shoot threes as opposed to self-created threes is going to be a lot better for him. Because back in Brooklyn, that's kind of what he was doing. Most of his threes were off the dribble. So when you're next to Luka, a lot of your stuff is going to be catch and shoot, and that's been a place he's been thriving. And in general, like the Mavs have been playing this 3-guard lineup a little more with him, Brunson, and Luke on the floor. And the ball just constantly moves whenever that lineup's out there. It'll be a Luka pick and roll, drive, instantly kick to Dinwiddie or Brunson. They'll run a handoff, and one of them will be driving. The other one will be cutting towards the other side. And the ball is just constantly flying. And the other role players, like Dorian Finney-Smith, Maxi Kleber, Dwight Powell, they've becoming really good at just constantly keeping the ball moving. So this team's offense has been really good. Defensively, they're still this tough, gritty team. They're having some issues. Like in that Brooklyn game, Andre Drummond just destroyed the Mavs on the boards. They weren't able to play him off the floor after a while. But in general, like it's probably, depending on who you go against, like if you go against DeAndre Ayton in the playoffs, that would be a problem, especially because he can score in the inside as well. Jokic, obviously, but I think this team's just in a really good place. Clutch performance has also been another thing. Before Spencer Dinwiddie got there, they were like one of the worst clutch teams, I think like bottom 3.
Oh, wow.
Part of that was the missed games with Luka and stuff, so I'm not going to take too much stock into it. But since Spencer Dinwiddie has joined the team, they're the number 1 clutch team in the NBA. Anytime they go down, I don't feel that bad about it. Like they legitimately feel like they can come back from anywhere. Like they came back in that Brooklyn game. They came back in Philly way before, not this last one. They came back against the Warriors. They came back against Boston. Like they're just constantly in every game. And a lot of that is just because of their defense. Like previous years, the Mavs were all about just can you outscore the opponent? You weren't going to stop them, so just outscore them.
Don't pretend to. Yeah.
Yeah. And when you go against a team that's good at offense and good at defense, unfortunately, the Mavs can't do that anymore. But now the Mavs can guard people and guard them well,
Yeah,
despite not having like a true defensive player of the year type of player. They're really good defensively. Everyone's locked in, and this team's been on fire. And I think Jason Kidd's not going to win Coach of the Year. There's a lot of better candidates, but I think he has to be up there as like one of the guys in the conversation for it, just because he took this team that was terrible defensively,
mm-hmm.
and despite its personnel, turned into a really good defense.
True. I mean, I mean, do you think that it has to purely come to his coaching? Because after the move that they did make, losing Kristaps Porzingis and bringing in Spencer Dinwiddie and Bertans, they've still been a pretty effective defensive unit, right?
Yeah, like to be fair, like a lot of their defense, like when they were really good, came without Porzingis because
Mm-hmm.
Dallas wants to play smaller. They're going to put uh, Dorian at the 5 or maybe Dwight Powell or Maxi Kleba, but in general, play smaller, switch a lot more, and you can't really do that when KP's on the floor. But I think in general, just Kidd, the way he's been preaching, everyone's bought in. Like we all know Luka's never going to be an elite defender, but
Mm-hmm.
he's been bought in this year, and it's been showing. Like he's been taking pride into it. Like he's going to be sarcastic when he says like, "Oh, I should be in all defense," but like he genuinely feels like he's been a good defender this year, and the numbers say so too. Like he's been one of the better defenders in the league. Obviously, not a defensive player of the year type of player, but
Mm-hmm.
just a good defender. And when your best player is being bought in on defense, everyone else will follow suit. So
True.
even Jalen Brunson is like small. He's never going to be an elite defender. He's smart and he knows when to rotate and do whatever he can. He'll take charges. He can't protect the rim. And Josh Green is a gritty defender. That dude's going to fly around screens, chasing ball handlers. Max Kleba and Dorian Finney-Smith are like the two best defenders on the Mavs. And then Reggie Bullock has been a solid defender as well. So this team just it's bought in, and it's going to be fun to see who they match up against for the playoffs.
Oh, absolutely. I 100% agree with you on that, and I'm curious myself as to how that's going to unfold. Um, But yeah, I mean, that I was gonna actually do my team breakdown, but that was such a thorough one. Plus, we kind of talked about Pelicans here a little bit before. I'm going to save that for later in the week, at least a new team breakdown. But what I am going to do, we have some NBA games tomorrow on a route, and I want to just kind of run through them, get your takes, just rapid fire on each one. So first, all times Eastern, 4 p.m. Blazers versus Pistons. Any thoughts? If you don't have any, you can just say pass. We're good to go.
Pass.
All right, there we are. Do I have any takes? Let me see. No, it's the Blazers and the Pistons. Moving on. Lakers versus Cavs, also at 4. Anirudh, please have mercy.
I mean, who's guarding Evan Mobley and then
Yep,
Darius Garland?
yep. That was my question exactly. I don't see it. I really don't. I think the Lakers try to go big, start Dwight Howard. Not sure how that
You're going to
works.
try going big against the Cavs? Like,
I mean, listen, it's either that or we start LeBron James at center against Evan Mobley. Like maybe strength wise, Evan Mobley doesn't have it against LeBron, but like in terms of pure length, like it's no contest.
that's actually might be interesting. I want to see how that goes, but good
I'm
luck
just trying to
guarding
be
Darius
realistic
Garland.
on it. Uh-huh.
Good luck guarding Darius
Yeah,
Garland. Like, we're
it's
going to
not
throw
I'm not
Avery
exactly
Bradley on him?
I'm not hopping. I'm not hopping at the opportunity. All right. Let me be the first to say it's not a pleasure of mine to be doing so. It's just something that's like it's just something I feel is gonna happen, you know? That game's not gonna be fun. I'm not looking forward to it. You know what? Can we let's move on? Let's move on.
Okay.
I'm gonna throw these 4 games at you. You can just pick which one you want to comment on. Pelicans versus Hornets at 4. Heat versus 76ers at 4:30. Jazz and Nets also at 4:30, and then Raptors and Bulls at 5.
Okay, let's talk about the Heat Sixers.
Yeah, I do like that. I think it's going to be a nice little matchup. They are in Philadelphia. Second, I have a back-to-back for 76ers. See how they respond against Miami Heat team that is at the top of the conference. Definitely want to see how those two teams come together. Yeah, especially since, since you've had the addition of Harden, the 76ers have been parading to the free throw line. So definitely should be something fun to watch. Last 3 games, all end early because we still have March Madness, I assume. 5, 5, and 5:30. 2 games at 5, Wizards and Rockets, and Celtics versus Thunder. And then 5:30 to close out a very early slate, the Timberwolves versus the Mavs.
That game's going to be fun.
Well, Timberwolves and Mavs? Yeah, I knew that's one you'd probably take. I'm glad you did.
I mean, the Timberwolves, some point, I need to do a deeper dive, but they've been really good this year.
Yeah. They've been remarkably solid. And they're legit. They look legit. The way they played, their defense has been solid. The way they've been shooting the 3-ball, they are a team that, I 100% agree with you. They are.
Malik Beasley is suddenly just a sniper now.
Yeah, it's like he's turning back to contract year Malik Beasley.
Yeah. And then Anthony Edwards, I love his interviews. Did you hear him talking about defense?
No. When that happened?
I think it might have been after the Bucks game, but someone asked him after the game, what he looks at when he's going through film.
Mm-hmm.
And his answer was, I know I'm a good defender, so I don't watch film of the other guys. I just go out there and use my instincts.
Okay.
And it's
listen.
That's a perfect quote. I love you.
Yeah, and always that you're going to get a good interview from Anthony Edwards. Whether or not it's one that makes a whole lot of sense, whether it's one that's based in a whole lot of truth, it's always going to be a very good interview. So, I'm not surprised by that. That makes me laugh, though. Keep just being yourself, right?
Yeah, and especially, he's been really good on defense this year. Since, Jaden McDaniel's been out, who's one of their best wing defenders, they've been going to this trapping scheme a little more, so we'll have Towns to be up higher. And at the back line, you have Pat Bev, Anthony Edwards in the place of Jaden McDaniels, and you have Vanderbilt, who's basically Dennis Rodman 2.0. So just constantly attacking the glass. They're really good defensively. Torian Prince has been solid. He's a guy I thought could have been moved at the deadline, but he's been helpful for the Wolves.
Yeah, he definitely has been. And I agree with you. He's someone I thought was going to be moved, but it didn't happen. And so far, not bad. It worked out. So okay, if that's going to be what it's going to be, then let's make it happen, right?
And then Pat Bev is just, he's
a guy. Fun. He's a guy out there.
Yeah.
If he's not getting ejected for pushing people in the back, he'll be okay.
Okay, why would you push the guy who just had back surgery?
I don't know. I feel I don't know. I don't hold it against him any being personal. I just don't think he makes the smartest of decisions, and he does this on a regular basis.
I don't think he did it on purpose. I don't think.
But it's still not wise.
This guy back surgery.
There was nothing in that denoted this is something.
He also barely did anything. Serge Ibaka just stood there.
Yeah, exactly. So what was the point of doing it? I get backing up your teammate, but they didn't really need backing up. They were already dispersing it. It didn't make any sense. The timing. It was a Pat Bev move. It's something I expect Pat Beverly to do. At the end of the day, I'm not shocked that it happens,
Yeah. And then Naz Reid, I think, is just one of my favorite backup bigs in the league. Can shoot a little bit, gritty defender, just a nice backup big.
No, absolutely. He really is. Absolutely. I mean, he's someone that does the job and slots in and has done it well.
Yep.
Well, Anirudh, I mean, this has been fun. Thank you for being the guy to help me come back on the show. It has been a couple of weeks of an absence. I'm happy to get back on. Could not think of a better partner to get me back started, man. I appreciate you. I know you'll be coming back on here soon, man, but what you looking forward to this week?
I want to see a little more of the Wolves, see what's going on with their defense, try to dive a little more deeper. And then March Madness, is Arizona going to get beat before making it to the finals?
There we go. That's going to be interesting. I hope not, because like I said, I did not make a bracket, but I did say to anyone who would listen that I can't even think of the name. Wow, Bear Down. The Arizona Bear Down would take it all. So I kind of need that to happen to have some sort of legitimacy when it comes to this whole, fantasy basketball deal. Anyways, aside from that, man, thank you again, Anirudh, for coming on. Do appreciate you, man. You always know that. You'll be on here pretty soon.
All right. Thanks for having me.
Oh, always, man. Listen, y'all, appreciate y'all for sticking with it. Check me out on Twitter at Corbin NBA. Thank you in advance for doing so. Check out Sports Ethos again on Twitter at Sports Ethos, online, sportsethos.com. Hey, quickly, before we sign off, want to remind you also to use the coupon code HoopBall20. I know we're Sports Ethos, but the code is still HoopBall20 at manscaped.com for 20% off your order and free shipping. Again, check out our pals. They're manscaped.com. Use the promo code HoopBall20, HOOPBALL for 20% off and free shipping. Also, look into our pals at mybookie.ag. Use the code HoopBall on the third page of sign up to unlock deposit match bonuses there as well. So you got 2 deals, 2 partners, all there. Manscaped, MyBookie, the code HoopBall20 for Manscaped, HoopBall for mybookie.ag. Really appreciate y'all, everyone. For Anirudh, for myself, we are Frosty. Y'all stay frosty, and I'll talk to y'all tomorrow. All right, y'all. This has been a Sports Ethos presentation.